Okay, the other thing that we might want to be measuring is the disease incidence. And here, disease incidence is different from disease prevalence because the disease incidence, the incidence of depression, is more like what was mentioned there by Mustafa, is the number of people who are new cases of that disease. And we define that over a period of time. So the incidence will be the new cases, the number of cases that get that disease over the time at risk. And here we have to measure the time between the beginning of the measurement to the end of the measurement so that we can get the proper estimate of the total time. So here, if someone gets a disease early on in the time period, but then gets better, they would still be counted as an incident case of the disease during that time point. So the incidence here is going to be the number of cases in the population divided by the total time at risk. And incidence does have a unit. It has a unit as the unit of time that we're using there. If we're using days, then it'd be per. If it were using years, it would be per year. And many times for rare diseases, we will be saying over per 100 person years, how many people will get this disease over per 100 person years. The tricky thing about incidence is that we need to add up the time at risk for each person. Because each person will have an entry date when they come into the study, and they'll have an exit date when they exit the study. But that exit date and that entry date may differ from one person. And so we need to be able to take into account the different entry dates and exit dates that we might have. The other thing is that some people might exit the population without experiencing the disease, in which case we'd call that censoring. Okay. Oh, I see that there's a question here from Anna Reen, which says standard error versus standard deviation. What are they different, and what to report when? So this is a very common question in statistics classes, and I wasn't going to go into this in too much detail, but just to say, yes, standard errors and standard deviations are different. Standard deviations are related to the variance of the mean. It's about estimating the variability of a mean, and it's related just to that particular kind of measurement that you might have when you're measuring continuous data over a period of time. And the standard deviation is the square root of the variance of that those particular observations. So standard deviations are related to normally distributed data, and that is all they are related to. Standard errors are something which are related to every single estimate that you have, whether it's from a normal distribution, whether it's from a binomial distribution, whether it's from a Poisson distribution or a negative binomial or a gamma distribution, whatever distribution we have, we should always be able to get a standard error to describe the variability of that particular estimate that we have. So standard errors and standard deviations are very different, and we should make sure that we're looking at the right thing when we're looking at the standard. Should be estimated, it should be obtained for every estimate that we get. And most statistical packages will give you standard errors output. Okay, so measuring incidence, getting back to the topic here. Measures of disease frequency which happen over a particular time period are usually called incidence measures. And it's important to specify the time period that is being used there, whether that is a few weeks, a few days, a few years, or maybe longer. Or even, as Mustafa says, over the whole lifetime, the cumulative incidence can be calculated over that. So the incidence of an outcome then refers to the number of cases that occur within a period of time. It's not about a specific point in time, but it's about over a period of time, and therefore is reported per unit of days, years, or months. Incidence counts the number of cases that occur within that given period of time, even if those cases get better or die or do something else before the end of the study. The incidence is a rate, and it does have the units of time as a denominator.